Hey everyone, it's Sky from Arthritis to Athlete here, and earlier this week I had something kind of odd pop up into my YouTube recommended feed. It was a video of Zach from the Try Guys describing his autoimmune condition in detail, AS, which is exactly what I have, and how he's actually getting worse. And while it was actually a really encouraging and motivational video overall, there was just a couple things that I had to comment on. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it and roll those titles. So the video starts off simply enough with Zach just describing what it's like to actually have an autoimmune condition like AS, something I know all too well.
It's an inflammatory disease that causes me a great deal of pain and often keeps me from sleeping at night. Not sleeping leaves me fatigued and in just this constant fog. Symptoms get worse anytime I'm immobile for a long period of time. So, sitting at my desk, laying in bed. Airplanes is a big one.
Oh, sorry, excuse me.
It sucks. It sucks. I'm living with a baseline of pain every single day to the point that I forget what it's like to not hurt somewhere.
Yep, that sounds like pretty much all the typical symptoms of AS. And when he says it sucks, I know. It's terrible. I can really relate more than you know. In fact, I even got so bad with my AS that I could barely get out of bed in the mornings without assistance, and lots of the times I was just bedridden during some days. So it seems like Zach next started his rounds of medication, as well as kept up his physical activity like stretching, yoga, cardiovascular activity, which is great, that all helps. But soon afterwards, the dose of medication he was taking seems to lose its effectiveness. Unfortunately, a lot of times with these types of conditions, that just happens, and there's not much you can do about it. However, it's actually very possible to improve to the point where you don't need any medications. More on that later. So with all that known, let's see what happens next.
No one can see you getting sicker. You can't see yourself getting sicker. I started waking up again in the middle of the night, at first confused, and then as the weeks went by, a nagging discomfort, then a pain. I was back to where I was 8 months ago. I was in pain all the time. I was back to the same old bullshit of not accepting my own reality. Why? 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 The moment that my medicine started working, I stopped paying attention to it.
My back is stiff. My neck is stiff. This whole week I haven't been able to sleep. I'm afraid that I'm just gonna keep getting worse. It's so easy to normalize the pain.
So it was actually at this point in the video that I actually started tearing up because I know the pain. I know this feeling so well. It's terrible. The feeling that you're in such pain you'd rather take your own life. I know that feeling. And he describes this fear of getting worse and this dread of what is to come in his life. I couldn't relate more. I understand this. I lived it. Now just a heads up, I am skipping some significant parts of the video, but I don't have enough time to comment on the whole thing. I'm just trying to make a point here. So long video short, he goes back to the doctor. Doctor says everything is fine, but he doesn't feel fine, so he starts to take responsibility for his own health, which is amazing. I really applaud you for that, man. So he goes on to describe his immense dedication to things like stretching right as he gets up and right before he goes to bed, exercising every single day, going on long walks, all the things that I actually already do, and they help a lot. So basically the video just goes on to describe his immense dedication to just beat this disease at all costs, and I gotta admit, he's got great dedication, and I really admire him for that. But here's where the crux of my argument really comes into play. I heard him talk this entire video about exercise and movement and keeping moving, get that blood flow going. But I didn't hear him say a thing about what he's putting in his mouth, which turns out to be the most important thing. Now I understand that stress management and finding a deeper sense of purpose also really help with these things, but I can only make this video so long, so I'm really just going to focus on the diet part. He mentions diet for about 1 second in the video and then kind of just glazes right over it. I'm not really sure. It seems like he's not actually aware of the profound impact that dietary intervention can really have on autoimmune conditions. Now, I probably should have said this earlier. Zach, or anybody, if you are watching this, I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to be hypercritical. I'm just really amazed that you took that step of taking responsibility for your health, and now I want you to take the next step so you could get even better results and live an even better life. Now, I know there is a great deal of confusion surrounding what diet is best for a certain disease. I encourage you to look towards the people who are not just managing their symptoms, but actually reversing their symptoms and living a normal life again. I'm talking about getting to the root cause of your problem, which is likely gut problems and intestinal permeability, and solving that problem with a whole foods plant-based diet. Let me explain. The suspected cause of autoimmune conditions is actually foreign proteins leaking into the bloodstream through the gut wall. So after years and years of exposure to a bad diet, one that is too high in processed foods and animal products, and one that is too low in whole plant foods, you can actually get damage to the intestinal lining. When that happens, these tight junctions between cells that are usually a fine woven net start to get holes in them, and they start to leak. And that's when foreign proteins can get into the bloodstream and cause a bunch of problems. Over time, if you have a genetic predisposition to a certain autoimmune condition, your body's immune system might start saying, these proteins that are leaking into the bloodstream look an awful lot like actual tissue because they're undigested proteins. This is where your body can start making defense mechanisms, antibodies, that actually start to attach and attack these foreign proteins that leaked into the bloodstream. Now, since these are undigested food proteins, they can actually look fairly similar to the proteins in our own tissues. What can happen is these antibodies that you already formed to the foreign proteins get a little bit confused and say, hey, this cartilage tissue looks a lot like that protein that I formed an antibody to, and start attacking it. This process is called molecular mimicry. Now imagine if we solve the problem at the root level. Imagine that we could actually stop the gut lining from becoming leaky and stop those foreign proteins from getting into the bloodstream in the first place. Even if you already have the antibodies, you can stop most of the ongoing harm that is already happening. Primarily, how do we fix the gut lining? You guessed it, a whole food plant-based diet. And you know, the only diet ever proven to reverse heart disease, to reverse diabetes, to reverse certain types of cancers is a whole food plant-based diet. And since things like autoimmune conditions are primarily caused by dietary factors, why would they be any different? I don't have a bunch of time in this video to go through all the research of why a whole food plant-based diet is the best for autoimmune conditions and most chronic diseases in general, but if you are interested and or curious about that type of stuff, I'll put a bunch of studies down in the description so you can read for yourself. So this video actually ends off in quite a great way. It's very encouraging, but here's the thing. Zach, if by some internet miracle you're actually watching this, I think you can do better. So it's awesome that you've realized that exercise is a big component of your recovery. Now I just implore you to take the next step and realize that dietary intervention is the primary approach to actually get the biggest improvement you can. In my recovery process from AS, I went from bedridden to living a relatively normal life in a very short time period. I want to see you and other people with autoimmune conditions succeed in life, but we can't do that if we don't address the root cause. I want to encourage you and show you how much control you actually have over this condition. And last but not least, if you're interested in the exact protocol that I use to reverse my AS, it's called the Pattison Program. I'll link that down in the description below. Again, I hope I didn't come across as patronizing this video. I really just want to help and I want to see people prosper and succeed. Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody. As always, if you got value out of this video, please consider adding value back by liking, commenting, and hitting that subscribe button, as well as the bell icon next to it down below. It really helps me out. Alright, everybody, with that, I'll see you guys soon, and God bless.